Kristen from Media Peruana Knits, here today to talk to you about yarns for warm weather. Here in Maryland, we are in the late spring and summer is rapidly approaching. Once we hit June, the temperature will go up and the humidity will also go up. And I have been thinking about nothing but warm weather knitting projects and looking into yarns that I can use for those projects, and thought I should take the time to share some of those yarns with you guys in case you, like me, are looking for some good yarns to use when the weather is warm and when 100% wool is just not going to work. I know there are some places where perhaps in warm weather you can still wear wool. Central Maryland is not one of those places, and especially not 100% wool. So I do have a couple of blends in this list, but for the most part, when I say those are warm weather, I mean May, September kind of weather, not the height of summer. I'm also going to be showing you the projects I either have made, am making, or plan to make with these yarns. And then lastly, I have one sort of bonus yarn for you because I bought it to try out for a possible design, just an idea I've been playing with that maybe I'll just make for myself, maybe it'll become a pattern, who knows. So without further ado, let's jump into some warm weather yarns. I'm going to start with one of my current works in progress and show you the yarn I'm using for that. All right, the yarn I'm using for this project is, I don't know how to pronounce the brand or the yarn name, so I'm going to guess it is Isager or Isager, and the yarn is Bomulin or Bomulin, I don't know. This is a fingering weight, 65% cotton, 35% linen yarn. That math works, right? 65, 35, yes, okay. This is a fingering weight. It is a very light fingering weight, I would say. So it is, let's see, 50 grams, 210 meters to the, it's kind of like a little cake, but there's a piece of cardboard inside to hold its shape, which actually has been really nice for working with it. And I am using this yarn for my Helix halter. So this is a pattern that I was originally test knitting for Jessie May. She has already released this. And I forgot to pack it when we went to Peru. So I just couldn't meet the testing deadline, and that was the end of that. But I am still working on it. And this is, again, Helix halter. I'm doing the halter version, but there's also a version with like a cold shoulder long sleeves. But I am doing the halter. The original pattern does call for a 100% cotton yarn, or for a cotton linen blend. So swapping in another cotton linen blend was pretty easy. One thing I do want to emphasize is that if you have found a project, could be, you know, a halter top or a tank top or something, that the pattern is written for wool and you want to just swap in a cotton or a linen, that is not always going to work. It really depends on the pattern and the fabric. Cotton and wool behave so differently. So wool has a lot of stretch. It will stretch out and then come back in very easily. Cotton doesn't do that nearly so well. So you really do, when considering your warm weather yarns, want to think about the kind of project that you're going to use them for. And this is something I have struggled with because, as I said, wearing wool in the summer here is really not a great idea. It is not comfortable. But a lot of the sleeveless and warm weather tops I've seen are still made with wool. And swapping in a cotton or linen doesn't always work. I didn't have to worry about that for this project. And I am really enjoying working with this yarn. It is really reasonably priced. So for this pattern, I needed 2 balls. They are $11.50 at wherever I ordered this from. Most stores should have it priced at about the same price. So that's less than $25 to make my top, since I'm just making the sleeveless top. This isn't hard on my hands. It is, I mean, it certainly is not as soft as a merino wool, but it is very comfortable to knit with. It is not like super slippery on the needles or anything. So overall, if you're looking for a fingering weight blend, I think this is a really good choice. I also particularly like the colors for this. They're very muted, which is really more my speed. So that is the first warm weather yarn that I can recommend, is this Isager Bomulin, which is a nice fingering weight cotton linen blend. In that same vein of cotton linen blends, another project I'm currently working on with a nice warm weather yarn is a project I did show in the last episode of the podcast. This is the Pickles Romper for my future nephew, who is due in July. And for this, I am using Ritual Dye's Undyne. This is almost the same. It is 60/40 cotton linen. And this one is, I will say, it is much pricier. So it also comes in a larger put up. So that the Bomulin was, what did I say? $11.50 for 200 meters. And the Undyne is $22 for 383 yards. So it is twice the price. It is not quite twice the yardage. So it is a little bit more expensive, but it is also an indie dye. And if you like to support small businesses and indie dyers, that is definitely the way to go. So again, this is from Ritual Dyes. You can buy it directly on their website. I don't know if it's sold anywhere else in yarn stores. I did purchase this directly from them. I actually have, right here, I actually have another ball as well of just a cream. I'd originally bought them to stripe together in something, and then remembered I don't really like stripes on my clothes. This is, first, I think it is a little bit heavier than the Bomulin, whatever. It is just as nice to knit with. It, I don't know how to describe the feeling of the fabric. The fabric does feel just a little bit smoother. So perhaps the structure of the spin is just a little bit tighter, giving you just a little bit of a smoother fabric. And it is also organic cotton. I have no information about whether the cotton used in the Bomulin is organic or not. So if that is something that's important to you, definitely this one is organic cotton from Peru, which we all love, of course. Again, this is hand dyed, so you have a bit of a more hand dyed look to the yarn. Some of them more than others. So this one is obviously natural. This is undyed. This is, you know, not a little bit of tonality in here, but not much. It's pretty uniform. But some of the other colors that they have available are a bit more artistic. So I have not made an adult garment out of this, but I would certainly like to try one, perhaps in the near future. Like I said, I did originally buy it to make something for myself and just ended up deciding to use it for this instead. But it is nice to knit with, organic. The company says it's machine washable. So I think this is going to be another great warm weather fingering weight cotton linen blend for your spring and summer knitting. Right, now we're going to talk about a yarn that has some wool. The reason for this is that what I would like to do with this yarn is to make a Jessie May ripple halter. That is a pattern that is all over ribbing and is designed to have negative ease and is written for a 100% wool. Swapping in a cotton linen yarn would not work for this project. It will just, because of the fabric characteristics, it's supposed to have negative ease. It's supposed to be very close fitting. It is supposed to, kind of hug the body. A cotton linen is just not going to do that. If I follow the pattern, which I want to do, I don't want to have to, reinvent the wheel here. It's a beautiful pattern. There's no reason for me to futz around and try to swap in a 100% cotton or cotton linen blend. That said, I really can't think of a situation in my life where I want to wear a close-fitting halter top in 100% wool, because if it's warm enough to wear that halter top, I'm gonna want it to be in a cooler fabric. So I'm gonna try this, this is from Amano Yarns. This is their Chaski line. And Chaski, just for fun, is the messengers of the Inca kingdom. So Chaskis were runners and would run and deliver messages. That's how they communicated, because the Incas did not have a written language. Moving on. So it's called Chaski. It is 60% superwash merino wool, 30% cotton, 10% linen. So it is not 100% wool, but having the wool in there is going to keep this behaving more like a wool fabric than a cotton or linen fabric. But adding the plant fibers are hopefully also going to make it a bit cooler. I don't know if this is going to work. This is this is hopeful. This is fingers crossed. But I really like the idea. I love the ripple halter. This is another yarn that I originally bought for something else, and ultimately decided no, gonna move on with that. But I think it's gonna be a good pairing for this project. This is again a fingering weight yarn. It even tells you what Chaski means right here. And it also says it's machine washable, which sounds pretty good. So it is 100 grams, 383 yards. So it is on the heavier side of a fingering weight. It retails for $18. I think I'm gonna need 2 of these for the ripple halter, so that's gonna put me at $36 for the halter, which is completely reasonable. And again, I'm just kind of crossing my fingers that this is going to work. If you're gonna make a swap like this, you have to be prepared that maybe it's just not going to work out like you want, but I have high hopes and we shall see. I have not used this in a finished project before, but I have swatched with it before. So it is very soft. It basically feels just like knitting, maybe a slightly less soft wool. So, you know, if you're used to knitting 100% merino, it may feel a little rougher to you, maybe more like a BFL, but it is certainly still soft, and it is, you know, knitting with cotton and cotton linen yarns, they can be soft, but they're going to be soft for a cotton linen yarn. They're not going to feel like knitting with merino wool. You have to sort of have a different frame of reference. So this it feels nicer than knitting with 100% plant-based fiber, but not as soft as knitting with a merino wool. The colors are beautiful. The different fibers take the dye a little bit differently, so I'm not sure if I get this a little closer, you can see a little bit of variation in the color. You can see it's the plant fibers don't take as much of the dye as the wool does, so that's why you're getting a little bit of, it almost looks marled. So high hopes that this is going to work for a ripple halter, but if you are perhaps in an environment where wool is not completely off the table for summer, or you're looking to make nice transitional garments, I think this is going to be a good choice. Again, that's Amano Yarns Chaski. This next one is a popular one I've seen coming up a lot for warm weather knitting, and that is the Knitting for Olive 100% Pure Silk. Now, I know I said just a few minutes ago that I'm not big on wearing stripes, and generally speaking, that is true. I don't like bold stripes, and I don't like super high contrast stripes. But as we all do, I was browsing Instagram the other day and found a beautiful pattern. I'm going to stick a photo of it in here. This is the Laura top by Estefania Cubiña. She is a Spanish designer. As far as I know, the pattern is only available in Spanish. As a side note, if you find patterns that are available only in Spanish and you would love to see them in English, you know, drop the designer a note and say, hey, I understand this is only available in Spanish, but you know, if it were available in English, I would buy it. So just to let you know, and then you can recommend me to translate the pattern. Let's get back on track though. So this is the Laurata. It calls for 100% silk. I believe that yarn is only available in Spain, or is, perhaps I could buy it online, but I'm not going to order it all the way from Spain when we have plenty of very similar alternatives. So I picked up these two different colors. I actually have 4 balls of Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. So I have so far been a big fan of the Knitting for Olive yarns. These are another fingering weight yarn. You're going to find a lot of fingering weight yarns in kind of warm weather patterns. It is, as you might guess, 100% silk. It says 100% Bourette silk. I don't know what Bourette silk is. Some kind of special silk. It is 250 meters, 273 yards. So that is a pretty light fingering weight, 273 yards to 50 grams. And my colors are Plum Rose and Ballerina, I believe. Yes. Plum Rose and Ballerina to stripe in that top. So these retail for $13.50. Thinking about a summer top, it's going to run you, I don't know, somewhere about like the 600 to 800 yards, depending on whether or not it has sleeves and cables and things like that. And obviously your size. That's, you know, $13.50, 273 yards. Maybe you're going to need somewhere between 3 and 5 balls. That's pretty reasonable for a summer top. As I said, I haven't even tried this yet. I haven't even swatched for it yet. I will, of course, be doing that. But everyone else who has talked about this yarn has raved about it. So I think this is going to be a really good choice for any kind of summer top. 100% silk. Again, it's going to behave differently than other fibers. You can probably swap it in for most cotton, linen patterns. Swapping again for wool is really going to be tricky, so it's something to keep an eye on. Again, something like silk just doesn't have the same elasticity as wool, so if your pattern depends on elasticity to make it have the shape it's supposed to have, swapping in a plant fiber it's probably not going to work how you want it to. That's not to say it can never work. You just have to be comfortable with the idea that your project is going to look different than the pattern. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm trying to get some things off the needles before I start this project. We'll see how that goes. All right, and the last yarn I actually want to tell you about is the yarn I used for this. This is my Gelato tank top. This is a pattern by Gabrielle Vézina, Gabrielle Knits. And again, this project was designed basically for this yarn. So the pattern calls for a silk linen sport weight. That's exactly what this is. This is not the exact yarn from the pattern. However, this is Magpie Fibers Equinox Sport. This is, if I could knit every single warm weather project in this yarn, I would probably do it. It's so soft. The silk gives it a lot of shine. It's really comfortable. It was easy to knit. It comes in all of her absolutely gorgeous colors. This is one of her beaver colors, and I don't know which one. It is 65% silk, 35% linen. It is so drapey. It is just absolutely stunning. That said, it is quite pricey. I believe I bought 2 skeins for this, so I had this much left of the second skein. These skeins are $36 a piece. So that is, like I said, if I could use this for every project, I probably would, but that's just a little too pricey. As much as I would like to, you know, we can have some projects that are luxury yarn and some that are not quite so much luxury yarn. But I think it worked out absolutely beautifully for this, and I really can't say enough good things about this. It is not a fingering weight, it is a sport weight. It is 365 yards, 215 grams, so it is definitely not a fingering weight. You may find that it swaps in well for a fingering weight, you might not. Just really gonna depend on your project. and there aren't a ton of, I won't say there aren't a ton, but there simply aren't as many sport weight projects out there. So it might be worth giving it a try. But this pattern in particular, it is written for a sport weight yarn and it is written for a silk linen blend. So if you have some of the Equinox Sport and are wondering what to do with it, I think this is a great choice. So like I said, I can't say enough good things about this yarn. I wish I could remember which of the beaver colorways this is. I'm sorry to say I don't remember. It might be Bougie Beaver. I don't know. But that is an absolutely gorgeous, perfect yarn for warm weather. And if you're looking to splurge, you know, maybe you couldn't afford to knit a long sleeve sweater in a yarn that costs $36 a skein, but if maybe you only need 2 skeins for a t-shirt or a tank top like this, then that might be a good choice. And the last yarn I want to tell you about, I got kind of to experiment. So again, I've heard lots of good things about it. It is another Knitting for Olive yarn. I haven't actually used it. Other people have said good things about it, but I'm sure you will be hearing more about it in the upcoming podcast as I start playing around with it. So this is the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino Fingering. Again, a fingering weight yarn. Yes, it has some wool, but it's not 100% wool. So it is 70% cotton, 30%, what is RWS wool? I don't know what RWS means, but it's whatever it does, 30% wool. So this is a mostly cotton yarn that has some wool in it that is going to give it a bit more elasticity, a bit more structure, and making it a little bit softer to work with. I've been playing around with an idea for a kind of tank top that I kind of just want to make for myself. It might end up being a pattern. It might not. It may not work out, but I wanted to get a soft yarn, reasonably priced yarn. You know, I thought about ordering 2 skeins of the Magpie fibers in the Voices Carry colorway, which is kind of similar to this. It's a blue-gray. But as I said, those are a little pricier, $36 for 373 yards. And these are $10 for, what did we say 250 meters was? Like 273 yards for $10. So that is going to be a little bit more reasonable. Again, I got these from Fiberspace. I am sure you can find it at other local yarn stores, other vendors online. You can order from Fiberspace online as well. So this color is called Elephant Blue. This is basically my favorite shade of blue, a blue-gray, kind of a cadet blue. And we'll see. I'm going to start playing around with it. And I will certainly be posting on Instagram and sharing here on the Made Pair One and its YouTube channel, so you can see if it becomes anything. Oh, it is organic cotton. So again, if that's something that is important to you, this might be a good choice. So $10 a ball, 273 yards per ball. You're gonna get a t-shirt or other kind of warm weather project out of this for basically $30 or $40, depending on your size. So I think that's a pretty good deal. And while I haven't tried it yet, I have loved all of the Knitting for Olive yarns that I've worked with, and so apparently has everyone else. I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about it, so worth checking out. All right, those are all of the warm weather yarns that I had to share with you today. I will close out by reminding you again that while warm weather yarns can make our warm weather knitting actually enjoyable to wear, it's not always a great idea to swap plant fibers with wool fibers. If the pattern is specifically designed for using wool, you need to kind of look at the pattern and make a judgment call there, because the cotton and the linen and the silk will behave very differently than wool. So keep that in mind, but I hope you found this useful, found some good warm weather yarn suggestions, maybe a few pattern suggestions as well, and are excited to get started on some warm weather projects of your own. Thank you again for joining me for this video. If you were looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Media Peruana. Here on YouTube, if you can give this video a thumbs up and definitely subscribe so you don't miss future vlogs like this, episodes of the podcast, tutorials, and other great knitting content. Thanks again, and I will see you soon in another video.